So again, thanks, Cody, for joining us, and I will let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. So, welcome everybody. I'm Cody Baldwin. I'm the director of our Master's in Business Analytics program. And so I teach some of the classes in the program, but I also help with things like admission and working with employers to identify some that would hire our students. And so we thought it would be helpful to kind of talk a bit about um, what some of the career options there are upon completing the program, and then what some of the technology is that we use throughout the program. And really, we're trying to teach you some of these technologies to make you marketable for these careers. That's kind of the idea. All right. With that being said, I thought, first it might be helpful to just give you kind of a quick intro of the MSBA program if you're not already a little bit familiar with it. So it is a 1 year program, and we have about 100 students. It's kind of been our average over the last few years, and we've consistently been a top 10 program in the U.S., and we expect that to continue. And in terms of the curriculum that we cover, it's pretty wide ranging. So we cover everything from like programming and data visualization to machine learning and data warehousing to statistics and automation. I will say, like, one of the things that's pretty unique about us is that we have a big focus on cloud computing. So we want you to develop all of these sort of foundational analytic skills like machine learning and AI, right? We want you to be able to do them in a cloud environment. And so there's a common thread of the cloud throughout the program. And we have a class that's specifically dedicated to that, but you see it in other places as well. And the whole goal of this curriculum and the goal of the program is to help you to be able to take data, and sometimes lots of it, and sometimes really messy data. That's why I've got a cat in here that looks like that. But to be able to turn it into useful business insights. Like in and of itself, data is not valuable unless you can use it for some insights, like some business, um, strategy, right, to help you further your business. That's kind of the idea. That's what we're trying to do. Take this data and whatever format it exists in, and use it to further our business. And so now let's talk a bit about sort of career pathways. And one of the things that I really like about analytics is that there's a lot of possible paths. And you could take analytics and add it to some of your other areas of interest or your other studies or your other experience, right? It can go together with a lot of things. And an example I often give is that we had a student that was kind of like biology background, and I think went to do something in that field, and then came back to get their MSBA degree and combine that to go work in healthcare analytics. So use their sort of healthcare background, add analytics to it, and merge those two things together, which I thought was really neat. There's a lot of stuff like that we see as a part as an output of this program. But sort of in general, the way that I think about the opportunities in analytics is kind of across this spectrum, and it's a wide spectrum. And on the left of this, what you see are more business focused roles, like a marketing director, right? Some kind of business manager or a project manager, also a product manager potentially. And on the right hand side, what you tend to see are things that are more technical, like a data engineer, someone who's building the pipes to provide us access to data, and data scientists. And in the middle, you have sort of a combination of that. You use your background in business or in healthcare, like in my previous example, and combine that with your technical background to become this kind of cool value added analyst. In addition to that, like as you look across this spectrum, what I've got in the bottom here is to show you that you could be a data scientist in the marketing group, or you could be a project manager in operations, right, who works on analytics projects over there. So you have sort of that dimension too, where it's not just like business or technical or some mix, it's also different business domains like marketing, finance, operations, and HR. Also, to just give you kind of some sense of where our students are going. So this is in addition to like at these companies, they may fill a variety of paths, whether it's more business focused or technical focused. And we probably should update this to reflect the students that are graduating or working, getting close to graduating here in the next few weeks. But it just kind of gives you a sense. It's almost every type of company, large and small, across a variety of industries, and again, across that technical spectrum. All right. Now, to kind of pivot off that, let's talk now about the tools and the technologies that we use in the program. And it's things that we use in the classroom and that our graduates use on the job. Now, the way that we think about this is that before we bring a tool or technology into the program, We want to make sure that our alumni are talking about it, like it's something that they're using, and also that our employers are asking for it as well. That's one of the reasons why we have such a focus on cloud computing is because we were hearing from a lot of employers that hire our students that they're looking for that. Again, not just an analytics foundation, but to be able to do those things in a cloud environment. And so we spend a lot of time with employers throughout the year, and we have sort of what's like an advisory board where we get feedback on the tools, the technology they bring. Because it's not like we just bring in a random tool or something that's easy to kind of work with. We want the stuff that's actually being used out there in industry. And so this just gives you kind of a sense of some of those tools. It's not all of them, and I'm going to walk through some of these in a little bit more detail here in just a minute, and then we'll actually look at one in a second. But in terms of tools, we have a focus on, or in terms of programming, we have a focus on Python. So traditionally, like in analytics and data science, people were programming in both R and Python, but Python has become more predominant. So we focus on Python. And so in the online in the summer, before you start the program, you have an online boot camp in Python, which gets you ready for the fall semester where you take your analytics core. Also, in terms of visualization, you get to work with both Tableau and Power BI. They're the two most common or popular data visualization tools that are out there. And Power BI is sort of becoming the leader in that area. And so we definitely give you focus on that. We've also got an emphasis on Snowflake. So Snowflake is the most popular cloud data warehouse. There's others out there. It's not the only one, but it's incredibly popular. And we find that a lot of the employers that hire our students are looking for people with that type of experience. So you get a lot of exposure to Snowflake, this cloud database or cloud data warehouse. And I'm going to show you a peek of that in just a second. Also, we have a relationship or an agreement with AWS, so all of our students can get access to AWS cloud tools as part of the program. That's our primary cloud provider, but you could exposure to some other cloud tools or platforms as well. We also have other tools in sort of other classes, and these are a couple examples: UiPath and Celonis. But these aren't the only ones. Just to kind of give you a taste, we have a class in automation and process automation. And a lot of what we try to do in analytics is to automate our work. And so stuff like this can be super helpful. But UiPath is a tool for robotic process automation. So automating repetitive processes. And then Celonis is a tool for process mining. So to gather data from our business processes and to be able to mine it. And I'll actually show you a peek of that in just a second. So, all right. So I thought it might be cool to kind of walk through some of these tools so you get a sense of what purpose they serve and maybe what it looks like inside of them. Now, I'll just start with Snowflake because we do quite a bit with that. And then I'm actually towards the end, as I walk through a lot of these tools, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of it and how to kind of show you how Snowflake is also pulling in a lot more AI features, like allows you to use LLMs in their tool now, just to get a sense of what that looks like. So, but Snowflake is a tool for data warehousing. And again, we use that quite a bit. So a data warehouse, if you're not familiar with it, is a database specifically designed for analytics. Like it's built for that. And it's a central repository of integrated data. So oftentimes when we're trying to like pull together data to extract these business insights, data that we want to use is scattered across a lot of sources, a lot of different sources. And so a data warehouse is a place that we can centralize that data to make it easy to work with for analytics or for data science. And so what we're often doing is bringing data into this central repository, maybe cleaning it and transforming it, and then taking that data and providing it as an input to dashboards, reports, and other machine learning models. So it becomes important input to those things. And really, like when it comes to AI and data science, they're only really that helpful if we've got good input data to be able to work with. And so it gives us, as we bring in this data, a consistent view of our organization's information too. So let's say that you've got a few different sources of information that might provide you insights into what your sales were last quarter. What you don't want is one person using one tool at one time and one person using a different tool at another time. And then when you go to a board meeting, you've got different numbers for what the sales were last quarter. You'd like a consistent view of that information. And a way that I think about it is it's kind of like driving down the highway and seeing out of all of your mirrors just at once. So if you want to be able to drive safely, you want to be able to see out of all of these angles. And that's kind of what this is doing. It's giving us all a consistent view and sort of a wide view, a good view of all that information. All right, so that's Snowflake, but I'll come back to it in just a second. Again, we also use Tableau and Power BI for data visualization. And so I mentioned how Power BI is becoming this really popular tool. And one of the reasons why it is really popular is because, I mean, it's gotten a lot better over the last few years, but a lot of us, like a lot of industry, already has existing relationships with Microsoft. Like it's part of their enterprise licenses. And so it's pretty easy to, if you're already using Windows and you're maybe using Azure for the cloud or something like that, to just pull in Power BI. It fits nicely within that ecosystem. So Microsoft Power BI is becoming super popular. And the way that it works is you build these dashboards, these data visualizations in Power BI desktop. And then once you build them, you can make them available to people online through Power BI Service or Power BI Online. And then that can also work with Power BI Mobile. So you can develop these dashboards using Power BI Desktop and publish them and make them available to people across your organization or even external to your organization. And so an example, like a simple example I give is like a case of where we work with an office supply company. We gather data from the company about their customers, their orders and items in an order. And we use that as we've got data from a few different sources to build out this integrated dashboard where we're looking at things like our sales for the last year, or what our profit margin was, the items that we sold, and then we can drill down into certain areas, right? And we can look at seasonality in our sales. Now, typically with a dashboard, you're looking at like you're building it and then you're wanting to make use of it over time. Like it's not just you change it every day. You want to be able to build this dashboard where you're monitoring some key performance indicators, things that are critical to your business, and then maybe opening them up every day or every week, or using them in your executive meetings or something like that to kind of get a sense of where you are. That's a little bit different than like ad hoc analysis where you're just kind of running some SQL queries if you've got a random question, right? This is stuff that's pretty consistent. You want to monitor on a regular basis, or maybe it's something you want to make available to your salespeople. And again, they maybe need it every day to fill their jobs. All right. So another set of tools we work with are tools called Fivetran and DBT. It's for data extraction, loading, and transformation. And so I've alluded to this before, but a lot of times we've got data from a variety of sources, and oftentimes that data is not very clean. We want to try to be able to bring in that data to eventually extract insights out of it. Now, one of the challenges, though, has been historically in analytics is to be able to find a smooth, easy way to extract that data from its source um, and then transform it and then load it into our database or our data warehouse, which we then use or feed in to for analytics and stuff like that. Now, it used to be so before I was in academia, I was working at HP and I was doing stuff like this, building out data warehouses, build out this huge data warehouse that it was huge at the time, 50 billion records. And but it was incredibly difficult at the time to be able to source in or extract all that information, transform it, and load it. It just took a lot of time and a lot of scripting or programming to be able to do that. It's gotten so much more simple though, so much more simple. Now, I wanted to mention that like when it comes to this idea of extraction and loading, and a lot of the jobs that our students apply for, they want somebody who can do that, who can take data in whatever format or source it exists in, be able to extract it, transform it, and load it. And we call that like the ELT or ETL process. You're extracting, loading, and transforming the data. That's what it stands for. But they want students to be able to kind of at least understand that pipeline, if not be able to build them out. And I will say too, like I pull this out because I think it's interesting. A lot of times, like what I want students to know, like this isn't like me saying like me selecting the tools. This is us talking with employers about what they're using. So we visited a company recently who's hired our students in the past, um, and it shows you some of these tools that appear, right? It shows you that these are common tools that they're working with as they're helping their clients. It was a consulting company build out these data pipelines. And so here's kind of what this looks like when it comes to Fivetran and DBT. These are the tools that I'm going to allude to in a second. But Fivetran is a tool for automatically loading your data. And you can automatically load this data and do so every 5 minutes or every 24 hours, right? It can come as almost as fast or as slow as you want it to. And so what this shows you on the left is you've got all these sources, you've got these tools for loading the data in, and then once you actually load the data in, That's only the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that you may have to clean this data, like remove duplicates or address like blank values and stuff like that. And then you may have to actually join that data together. So DBT is a tool for automating the transformations of that data. So it's in a really good state in preparation for your analytics or your machine learning or your AI on the front end. And so Fivetrain is a tool we use, or one of the tools we use for automating the loading of the data. And DBT is a tool for automating the transformation. And so this is like the sort of less maybe sometimes feels less exciting aspect of analytics, but it's so important. We have to be able to build these pipes to connect and clean the data, or else whatever we do on the front end may not be as fruitful. The insights that we get out may be just garbage. So if you've heard that term garbage in, garbage out, that's kind of what happens. We want good data coming in, and so we can get really good insights going out. All right. Now, another tool that I wanted to kind of talk about briefly is Celonis, a tool for mining process data. And so our data, or sorry, our business processes, when we have lots of them, they generate lots of data. So we do things all the time in business like shipping orders, resolving complaints, hiring employees, repairing equipment. Again, there could be hundreds of processes in a business. And what we'd like to do with a lot of those is to be able to extract data from them and mine them. And so that's what process mining does. We take process data, we use that to automatically generate process maps that we can then explore for insights. And so these process mining tools take this data generated from the process, which come from tools like SAP or Oracle or something like that, or maybe it's Salesforce, and automatically generates process maps that we can explore for insights. And then as you do that, you can sort of play detective and drill down into certain steps and understand how often they occur, if there's bottlenecks in those steps, things like that. Now, the like quick example I'll give you here is you can imagine that you own a chain of pizza restaurants. And what you do is you feed in data from the process to try to understand where that process is working, how long it's taking, when it's breaking down, that sort of thing. And so in this example, it shows you that as you feed in this data about the pizza process, pizza orders, that you've got a couple thousand orders and a variety of variations of orders. So, like the most common path through a pizza ordering process represents about 21% of orders. And that's where a customer orders on the phone. We prepare their pizza, we make it, and then we deliver it to them. So it's like this common path or sequence of the process. But maybe as we go through this and we're playing detective, when we use Celonis to drill down into this process data, we find out some other things. Like there's three ordering methods. Customers can order at the counter, they can order by phone, or they can order on the website. Then we also find out that 18% of orders were on our website. We figure that out as we start drilling into one of those ordering methods. And we also find out that something troubling, that 50% of orders that are received on the website result in a customer call, which seems like a problem. If a customer is ordering on the website and we're having to call them back, that seems inefficient. Like we should just be able to receive that customer order from the website and just start making it. My concern would be that maybe we're running out of ingredients and we can't make the pizza they wanted or something. That's definitely a problem. So you start to see these problems as you drill down into this process. You might see things too, like only 98% of the orders. You'd think it would be 100, but only 98% have this process step that's called pizza ready. You think that if you're at a pizza restaurant, that all of them would have this pizza ready step. Like you make the pizza, it's ready, you prep for delivery and stuff like that. But what you find out as you go through this is that there are probably order cancellations because the process doesn't totally complete. And what you find out again is that's the case, is that they're not getting to that step in the process because they're getting canceled before they get there. Like we started making the pizza, the customer canceled it, and so on. So you go through this, you pull out data from the process, and you sort of play detective with Celonis and start drilling down into it to understand what's working, what's not working, and maybe how you could fix it. All right, I'm going to skip past here a little bit and talk about one more tool before we do a little quick demo on Celonis and then open it up for questions here. But another tool that we use in our class around automation is a tool called UiPath. It's the most popular it's the most popular tool on the market for robotic process automation, for automating repetitive user processes. So in this case, what we're doing is we're automating tasks that users perform in their GUI. Often what they like this their interface. I said GUI, but that's what they look at, their graphical user interface. And so a lot of the things that we do in business, they're very repetitive, tend to be pretty boring. It's kind of like creating invoices. It's this manual process that's very repetitive that takes a lot of people's time. What we'd like to do is automate some of those repetitive things, and UiPath can help us to do that. And so this is one example of something we can automate using UiPath. Maybe we monitor our email as a business for invoices that come in, and then the tool like UiPath extracts data from those invoices automatically. Maybe they're PDF invoices that get attached to an email, and we enter that data into our accounting software, and then we automate the payment at the end of it, right, or the collection or something like that. So those are these manual, or an example of one of these manual repetitive processes that we could automate using UiPath. And so one example I give is, as a business, maybe what you're doing is you're benchmarking yourself to others in terms of your financials. And so what you do is you extract balance sheets for several companies that are similar to you, and then you perform analysis on those balance sheets. And you do that on a regular basis, and you want to automate that process. So in this example, actually, this is one that we use in our class. We generate a list of companies that we want balance sheets for, and this is a list of them, and this is their stock ticker symbol. But what we do is we have the tool automatically go to each one of these companies' balance sheets, copy the balance sheet, put it into our spreadsheet, and then generate some metrics on that. So we get an idea of how much variation, how much difference there is between us and all these other similar companies. And what I was going to do is I was going to show you like a quick demo of, or a little video about how this looks in UiPath. But I want to move ahead a little bit and just kind of finish by giving you a quick Snowflake demo. And I realized that I'm going taking a little bit longer than I thought, but I just wanted to show you quickly an example in Snowflake so you get an idea of what this tool actually looks like inside of it. So one problem like that is common across companies is that we have a lot of employee turnover, and we want to try to minimize that. That's when employees leave the company, either voluntarily or involuntarily. And so oftentimes what companies do is when people leave, they conduct an exit interview. They interview those who left to kind of understand why they left. Because what you want to do is to keep your good employees. You don't want them to leave. And so I collected some data where we were like it had all those exit interviews in them. And I'm imagining in this scenario that data is in Snowflake. Now the problem is I want to get a summary of this. Like I want to be able to take all of these hundreds or thousands potentially of exit interviews, and they could be long. It's not like 2 or 3 sentences. We maybe had an hour-long meeting with them, and to kind of understand the common reasons why people are leaving, and then what we can do to address it. Now, one challenge with that is you can see as you look at some of these exit interviews that some of them are in different languages, everything from Japanese to Spanish to French, in addition to English. And what you could do, is you could take this data, you could put it into ChatGPT and have it translate and try to summarize some of this. The problem is that this is sensitive company data, and you can't just put it inside any LLM tool to generate some insights. What Snowflake does now is allow you to feed in this data into it, and then keep the data inside Snowflake, and then use LLMs inside their environment so the data doesn't leave. So it's always in this secure perimeter. And I realized I was going to walk you through a little example of that, but I'm kind of almost at the end of the time, and I wanted to have some time for questions. So I'll kind of move past that. But what I will do is maybe in a future session, we'll walk through that in a little bit more detail. But that's one of the cool things about a lot of these new analytics tools is they're pulling in more AI features to make our job so much easier, to be able to extract insights, for example, from this unstructured text and use it to improve our business. It's getting a lot easier to generate business insights. So we can spend more time now focusing in on the insights and less on getting the data ready and in a state that's good for analysis. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip past this a little bit and just open it now up for questions. I'll hand it back to you, Michael, to help sort of administer that.
Yes, thank you very much, Cody, for going through that. And I mean, I myself, I'm starting to think of some questions too. It's really interesting stuff, the tools that you would be learning about in the program and be honing your skills at using those tools. I don't see any questions yet from the audience, but maybe some folks, if you've been admitted to the program or are considering applying to the program and want to learn more about the student experience, the question I had was, Cody, you can speak, I guess, as generally or specific or give some student examples, but um, I guess what I'm wondering about is the development of these skills. If somebody comes in and has no idea, they've never heard of Snowflake before, and I bet maybe I'm the only one that hasn't heard of Snowflake, but there's a lot of tools out there. Through the MSBA program, it's a 1 year program. Do you see folks they really go from that maybe beginner or novice state with a tool to then becoming like an expert ready to go at the end of the program? Or is it kind of like maybe some students they'll really develop their skills in some data tools, but then others they might spend less time on? Can you kind of speak on that? The kind of a student's development of these tools if they come in with not much, what they might be able to expect?
That's a great question. So most students have no previous programming experience before they join the program. And that's different from a lot of technical, like very technical programs. Like if you're going to go into one that's specifically data engineering or one that's computer science, right? We don't require that because what's more important, like most important, is like learning about business or learning about some other area, whether it could be healthcare in my example from earlier, and thinking about how you could use analytics to solve problems in that area. Because analytics is not like in and of itself is not valuable. It's what we can do with it to solve problems. And so like I showed all these technology tools and like programming is great, but it's only as good as the business problems or the industry problems that it can solve. And so in fact, like some of the most successful students are ones that have no previous programming experience, but like have some idea of how this could be applied and like an area that they've worked in the past. And so, again, whether it's healthcare, marketing, operations, human research, whatever you've studied or had experience with, understanding that is much more important, or having an interest in that is much more important than the analytics itself. Because analytics and these technologies that I just talked about are really tools to solve a problem, not the problem themselves. So, yeah, like
Hmm.
from again, in most cases, people don't have any previous programming experience.
Okay. Thanks for that, Cody. And I will get out of the way and voice a question from the audience. So that is definitely pertinent. Jennifer, good question. We were wondering, is there any career report for past graduates?
So if you go to the website, there's some a bunch of details. I know that there is probably even a downloadable handout which kind of talks you through what industries our students go into, what companies they might end up in, what their salary ranges are. So I can't remember off the top of my head what that range was. It has gone up over the last few years. I just but there is something available on the website. So if you go to just search UW-Madison MSBA, there is a section for career that talks about those in specific detail. I don't want to give you the wrong number. Um, and so that might be there. There is one up on the website though, certainly.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you, Cody, for that. Jennifer, Lydia, and all the other audience members, thank you all for joining. We are a little bit over time, but hopefully everybody can have a good rest of their day and learn something over this call. Cody, I appreciate your time. We look forward to hopefully having another one of these tech and career webinars in the future for MSBA. Thanks, everyone, and I'm going to close the webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.